CLG is definitely a different team come summer than they were in spring. J&T and I will hop into that. Of course, we have to this episode. Really exciting team to watch right now. Also, has 100 Thieves passed EG? We see EG dropping a game this weekend, kind of getting stomped, and 100 Thieves is on like a huge win streak. They are both now tied for first. We will get into that. And BLABER, big part of the C9 discussion. O2 weekend not looking too good to C9, and most people are pointing the finger at BLABER. So J&T and I will get into that. Episode 95 of the Clown Fiesta podcast with Blue Jay and J&T 250 starts now. Jinter, what do you think of the games this weekend? Let's just start right there.
They're pretty good. Definitely, the battle for playoffs is heating up, especially when it comes to seeding for the majority of the teams. Obviously, you have teams like 100 Thieves and CLG who are pretty much have been flying up the standings over the last couple weeks. And C9 was, up until their kind of a disaster of a 0-2 weekend, pretty much took them out of the race for any meaningful seeding. It's quite unlikely that they get past 5th place now, because they are 2 games behind both Team Liquid and CLG. And then, we got a battle at the bottom here between the 4 teams, Golden Guardians, Dig Immortals, and TSM. Nobody's technically safe. It is possible for any of those teams to both make and miss playoffs, so we're in for a spicy last week.
Yeah, I totally understand why people don't like 8 teams making playoffs, but I mean, you got to take the positives where you can get them, and that is one of the positives, is that all the games still matter going into the last week, so that's something, right?
Yeah. The foldy sheet is still long. Yeah,
and specifically to the games this past weekend that we just watched, I loved this past weekend, and I guess we should just hop into our first topic with that. The broadcast was amazing. The games were amazing. The crowd, do you remember at the start when like crowds first came back, it felt like crowds forgot how to be crowds? The crowd was really loud this past weekend, and I don't know if that was just an audio levels thing or what it was, but
I think it was that one guy who was screaming the whole time when dragons were getting taken.
It wasn't just
having some fun.
Did you like the dragon guy or not?
Yeah, it was funny for a bit, and then it got a bit old, but I don't know, better than nothing, I guess.
Did. Yeah, but no, I mean like when team fights were happening, you could hear the crowd going apeshit. The CLG FlyQuest game was amazing, man. That game was awesome. Anyways, my point in all of this is I thought the Sunday game specifically was the best the best day of LCS that I've watched in a while. I loved those games. And even though I think that was also the day of the TL stomp, was TL EG on Sunday?
Yep.
Yeah, even though that was a stomp, to me that was still good in the sense that like we weren't sure if TL was really going to be a top team, and we thought that EG was just going to run away with it. So it brought some parity to the league, even though that game wasn't the most exciting because of how one-sided it was. I think it's better that TL absolutely stomps EG than EG absolutely stomps TL, because I think that would make the stories or the standings or whatever it is just a lot less interesting. So I thought Sunday was really, really good, and I just think the LCS broadcast was it was in such a good spot specifically on Sunday. I loved it.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun, and kind of just to piggyback on that, the crowd, the energy of the crowd definitely made it, it was like a multiplying effect there, where the games were good, and then the crowd being really into it also made it a lot better. And then when you did kind of have those pretty hype moments, even in that CLG FlyQuest game you mentioned, where there's kind of the game's on a bit of a knife's edge, and the backdoor happens, and it's pretty hype.
That game was so good, man. I loved that game. I wanted FlyQuest to win. I'll admit it. Yes, I am FlyQuest stan. I really did. But I don't know. CLG winning was great as well, because like the story behind that team is also great. So it's like when you have the league that's in a scenario that whichever team wins is a good thing, that's healthy. That's a healthy league right there. And like I said, the fans being so into it was great. It was just so good. And then obviously we have to talk about the live comms. So good. I loved live comms. Yeah, especially in the TSM game. I think it was Spica that was like cursing a lot, but I mean
it was almost in every single clip. Like that was the first thing when the live comms were going on. I was like, they're obviously like, even before they happen, I was like, I mean, they're obviously going to be swearing and shit in the heat of the moment. So are they going to be like prepared to bleep those out, or are they going to like roll with the punches and just accept it? So it was kind of interesting to see. That's
what I think you need to do. Right? Like, I think if you decide that you're going to do live comms and then like people are cursing, so you're like, oh, let's not do that next week. you're just dumb for not knowing that's going to happen, right? Like, come on, we all know that's going to happen, don't we?
Yeah, who's not cursing when they're playing League? Please
Even
stand
the
up.
yeah, true. Even the casters sometimes every once in a while they slip on like an F bomb drops or whatever. No one cares, man. Like no one cares. Maybe like 1% of the viewers care, and maybe not even that. I don't know.
It
The good
definitely,
far outweighs the bad.
yeah, it definitely adds like an extra element to, you know, the broadcast itself, especially when you're bringing the replays in. One thing that I've always thought, you know, replays are somewhat formulaic, but I mean they're obviously necessary because you want to replay and rewatch the team fight because you know there's stuff that you might have missed. But having the players' commentary, I'm not commentary, I guess their live comms along with it, I think can give the audience at least a little better appreciation of kind of what it's like when they're in that game and in the situation. And even it was funny because in the live comms and a lot of these like stomp games, like the TSM Dig game and the TLEG game, like they're still going pretty ham. Like they're taking it pretty serious. I think even the casters were saying like I'm surprised that these guys are like still acting so serious when they're up like 6K at what was it, like 11 minutes or something.
It was really early, but yeah, that just shows the authenticity of the the mindset of a pro player. They want to fucking win, right? Like they just want, I want to win, and it doesn't matter how much you're up. We want to close out this game because that's, again, I say this all the time, but I'm going to repeat myself. When you commit yourself to a game as like your career, like it's their life. League of Legends is their life. You commit that whole week to going for that win. You're prepping to play against this team or that team. And when you don't win and you have the community at your throat, everyone, it just feels so bad. So like everyone is just going for that win. It doesn't surprise me at all how players continue to take it so serious even when they are up a lot. And quite frankly, that's what I love about competition. It's that everyone is so hungry for that win. That's another reason to point to a healthy league. Honestly, with the games matter, people care. So that, yeah, loved it.
Yeah, and even to go a little bit further about the broadcast, not even what they're doing during the games, but I think even in between the games, I think the LCS is starting to figure out a little bit how they want to sort of run the show in between the games. It feels like everything is a lot more smoother. I remember especially early on the segments that they were doing with High, with the players right after the game, where I don't remember if there's a name for it, but basically where he's going over
There
some
is.
of the
I can't
yeah,
remember what it's
I don't
called though.
remember what the name is, but basically where he's
I just
going
call
over
it the
some of the
flame game because
misplays.
high is always like passive aggressive, but
Yeah,
like
it's
every
funny.
time so I call it the flame game because they'll be like, yeah, I was just wondering why you decided to do that because it doesn't really seem like the best play. And it's like, dude, like you cannot go one of those segments without flaming someone, like again, and not like a hard flame, but more of like a passive aggressive way.
Yeah, but I even remember, like, we talked about it at the beginning when they first started doing this on the broadcast, and it just felt kind of awkward. You know, High wasn't necessarily, it seemed at the time, the kind of guy to do that because he didn't necessarily have that sort of practice. But now it feels a lot more fluid. It feels like the segments are quite good. And even in between the games, you know, they're playing a lot more of the content that they've been doing around the various teams, like all the LCS, the 10th anniversary stuff. You know, they'll show the top 10 kit or top 10 pentas, top 10 Baron steals, and even some other content that they've done with the teams now, specifically like the CLG Team Liquid thing, where they did like a bit of a quiz, similar to something that they do in the LEC. It does seem that the LCS is starting to organize their broadcasts in a similar fashion to the LEC in terms of the format, the what they're wearing, the more
Do you remember what I
the
said last
jokester
week?
mentality of it.
Do you remember what I said last week about like teams need to do content together? Like obviously the LCS was the one that did it, but like that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. The TLCLG content was great. I loved that.
Yeah, I mean they weren't necessarily doing it together, but it was like spliced together sort of
No,
thing.
yeah, exactly. No, I still think it would be better if they were actually together, but I mean, I kind of get it right now with like COVID is definitely still a thing, especially in LA. So like obviously if one guy, you don't want to, you want people in the studio, right? It's not like, oh, if someone gets COVID they're going to die or whatever, but you want um yeah, you want to not be able to spread that so that teams can play in the studio. We see that having an effect just about every week because there's some teams that just aren't there. And I guess this past weekend it was a false positive for Inspired, and that's why EG couldn't be there. And so, like, that just kind of sucks as well. Back to your point about the high thing, I still think that um, he still is getting like, I don't think he's there yet, but I definitely agree that where he's at now with that segment, which by the way is a great segment, is so much better than it was, I don't know, even just a month ago. Like, I think there's like a comfort zone that you have to reach when doing that. You got to get your comfort, and I think he's starting to get there with it. So yeah, I think that's also been improved as well.
Yeah, and sort of just to go back to kind of the COVID situations that we've had with a couple of the teams. Obviously, you just mentioned EG not being in the studio this weekend. Golden Guardians feels like they haven't been in the studio almost like the whole year. Uh, they've had like I watched one they put out a video on their YouTube channel, not necessarily related to what we're talking about, but in it they were saying how they had a lot of struggles at the beginning with COVID and people like their whole team wasn't able to be together, and they seem to be not in the studio on a weekly basis. And I'm kind of just wondering what the LCS is, sort of trying to do about that, because obviously you want the safety of all the players, the fans, everybody involved with it. That's the number one priority. But at the same time, you're kind of hurting your own product by not having all those teams there. And not to say that it's like a disservice to the fans, but some of the fans might be going that weekend and they're looking to go see their favorite team, and then their team is not there. And don't get me wrong, I understand safety is of the utmost importance, but it feels like the LCS maybe could be doing something a little bit more to try to limit this, because it does feel like we're almost missing 2 to 3 teams from the studio every week. I know at the beginning of the split, TSM wasn't there at all, Golden Guardians wasn't there. This past week, yeah, EG wasn't there, Dig wasn't there, Immortals wasn't there like a week or two ago. I don't know. It feels like, I don't know, if I was an LCS fan going to the studio and 3/4 or three or four teams aren't there, that would kind of suck.
No, I completely agree, and I think it's going to be worse for playoffs. Like, playoffs, you really want the teams there. Like, I think
Yeah.
it matters even more. So I think you're right. Honestly, I don't know what the heck you do about that though. That's a problem, right? Like, it's not an easy fix, but I don't know. Do whatever you can to get those teams there, because especially for playoffs, I think it's going to matter a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into our first topic, people that are new to the channel, we've got a lot of new viewers lately, so remember to hit the subscribe button if you're listening on YouTube, and if you are not aware, we are available on all podcast platforms, or just about all anyways. I think Apple Podcasts, Spotify, are we on SoundCloud as well? Probably, right?
I don't
I
think
think we're on
so.
SoundCloud.
I don't think they even do that
I
on
don't know. All the
SoundCloud.
Anchor ones.
Dude, SoundCloud,
All
that
the
is
Anchor
such an
supported.
outdated reference that you just made.
I
SoundCloud, bro.
I know. But dude,
Come on.
it's a platform.
I
Anyways, we're on a lot of platforms, so wherever, go look for Clown Fiesta Podcast. You can find this on there, or go to twitch.tv/Clown Fiesta Podcast, where we record our episodes live every Monday night past midnight, about 12:30 EST. It is currently 12:29 right now for reference. Okay, let's get into Battle for First. EG drops a game in convincing fashion, by the way, to TL, and 100 Thieves looking much, much better. So I guess let's just start right there. Is 100 Thieves the new favorite for you, J&T, or is EG still the best team in this league?
I feel like I'm sitting on the fence a little bit here, but EG to me still feels like the team that, they have the greatest potential, and when they play to that potential, they are the best team. However, I just think 100 Thieves has been the most consistent team, at least for the last, it feels 4 or 5 weeks now. And I guess if I was a betting man and I had to put money on one of the two, I would probably go with the consistency over the possibility of performing at 100%, because one of the reasons why I wasn't necessarily ready to fully jump onto the 100 Thieves bandwagon was because I thought we were still seeing, not necessarily off games, but we were still seeing, every game, or maybe every couple games, somebody wasn't having their best game. But it does feel like we're kind of at season 11 summer version of 100 Thieves, where everybody in their role is actually performing at a very, very high level. Someday had a really, really strong weekend. FBI and Hui have had a pretty damn good last couple weeks, and Closer and Abadage to me are still, the rock of this team, and is what
where's the weakness in the lineup?
Exactly.
Right?
Like right now, you can't point to one. And, I think we're really seeing a very more utility and roam heavy style from Abadage, as opposed to more of a hyper carry style we were kind of seeing him on in, late spring, early summer. Now we're seeing him on a ton of Ari. He's just making roams around the map all the time. It was really weird to see in that Cloud9 game that, like, he just roams down through about 3 wards and dives bot tower, and, but that basically just the game was not necessarily over from there because it was still kind of a close game, but gave bot lane the advantage it needed to really shut down the Neela Sona in that game.
I think the way 100 Thieves is playing right now is the reason why I can actually put them up with EG. Like, I'm still kind of on the fence myself. Like, it's really difficult because, for the record, I've not lost faith in EG at all just from this past weekend. I think Bwipo got a counter pick and really knew what to do with the Gwen. Like, it seems like Bwipo, by the way, is just knowing exactly how to play against Gwen. He plays Olaf and now the set. Like, that guy is ready to play against Gwen. So that's one thing. I don't think that that's something that's all that repeatable. I don't think EG would be exploited like that again, honestly. So I haven't lost respect for EG. It's that I just think 100 Thieves have caught up so much. We talked all split long about how like they just don't seem right. Their bot lane isn't playing that aggressive. Like FBI was his pathing was always terrible. His pathing has been so good, and I'm a little bit like on the fence about because he's playing so much Sivir and he's running it with the ghost as well. So it's like it's so much easier to be an 80 carry when first of all Sivir's busted right now, and two, it's a lot easier to position with ghost as well. But he looks so good in team fights, and the aggressive style that you're talking about how they go and dive bot lane. They force out the teleport like they force out Cloud9's teleport under lane. There's three of them under tower, and they're like, we're fucking diving anyways. And I love that play style that we're gonna play aggro, as FBI said on in the post game. He's like, we don't want to play like pussies anymore. Good, I love it. That is the 100 Thieves that we saw be so successful, and we kind of lost that with the teleport changes because they weren't able to TP and dive bot anymore. They found their way to do it anyways. Just roam down there and dive them. That's a really, really good look for 100 Thieves if they found their way to snowball through bot, which is what they did all of last year. So I agree with you that they're looking like they did last year. They're looking very aggressive. They're looking good in every lane. I don't see a weakness, so I put them right up there with EG. The only difference is I still think EG has the best player in the league in Inspired.
Yeah, I mean, you beat me to it there, but the pre-teleport nerf version of 100 Thieves, like that was their bread and butter, where they would take their teleports. If they were diving bot, they would use their top TP to go bot, and if they were diving top, they'd use their mid TP to go top. And we kind of lost that a little bit when those TP changes came out, and I think that's why 100 Thieves kind of dropped off a little bit because their early game wasn't as strong. But now we're kind of just seeing a little bit of a shift in their game plan from Abadage to more of this, control mage scaling role in terms of the early game utility. Like I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I feel like his Ari and Lissandra number of games has to be like above 50% at least this split, because it just feels like he's been playing a ton of Ari, a ton of Lissandra, looking to get priority in the first 5 levels and fight around early dragons, and if the timing is right, go bottom and dive.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that yes, it was against TSM, the EG game, but they still looked pretty damn solid in that game as well. Jojo kept stealing the Azir ulti and continued to find the, I don't know, the scoop. What do people call it?
The shuffle?
Shurima shuffle. Yeah. There's like a million different terms for it now.
Is there?
And that he looked really good on that as well. Yeah, you never hear the casters call it the scoop or the swoop?
Not the swoop, but
recently too, like last week I want to say, maybe even this weekend, but last week I think. Yeah, there's like a million names for it now, whereas it was always Shrima Shuffle. And yeah, I don't know where this scoop or swoop came from, but it's there.
Insert Kanye West song. You probably don't know that, but
no, I don't know that shit. Anyway,
I'd play it, but
then
we get copyrighted.
So just a thought to leave it on. If these two are playing each other right now, I actually still would take 100 Thieves, just because I do think they've been more consistent lately. But I don't think it's by any stretch of the imagination that it's like a one-sided matchup. This would be a huge best of 5 to watch. I think it would be really, really good. Not so much like we saw in spring.
Yeah, I'll echo the same point. Like I'm slightly favoring the consistency over EG's potential, but when I say EG's potential, that doesn't mean like they're not at their potential, because we've seen it for the majority of the split. They did put up a little bit of a stinker against, Team Liquid, but I find it very difficult to believe that is going to be some sort of repeatable success, like you said. Impact he's one of the best players in the whole league at, neutralizing his lane opponent, keeping an even lane state, and, assisting on the map when necessary. Obviously, to what you said before, Bwipo seems to have a really good idea of how to play into the Gwen and has multiple counter picks for it. Because even in that game, we did see EG ban the Olaf in the first rotation of bans, and they want to take the Gwen. And Bwipo was like, "Well, guess what? Here's behind door number 2, my set." And like I said, they had a 6K goal lead at like 11 or 12 minutes. Just completely obliterated the game through top lane. Bwipo had like multiple 1v3, 1v4s where he's like living or, stalling enough time for his team to get in there. The Gore Drinker with W, like it was looking really, really strong in that game.
On that note, should we just swap over to the TL and CLG discussion? I think we're kind of already halfway in there.
Yeah.
Definitely the week TL needed, right?
Well, their first 2-0 since the
since
the first week.
Well, and the first week was 3 games, so their first 2-0, right? Altogether.
Okay. Yeah,
Not even since the first. This was what they needed, and it's funny because they came out. Did you see the TL video that came out?
No.
They had a squad video, and shout out to Nessiv who tweeted at me. I made an appearance. You didn't know about that?
No.
They used one of my clips from Hotline League last week when I was talking about them being a super team or whatever. And basically the idea was that they were referencing a bunch of people calling them super team and whatnot, which they are, right? That's still what they are. But they were saying that like it's not a super team if you can't win or what. I don't remember exact.
That's lame. That's not how it works.
Words. Sure. The idea was that like they're not playing like a super team. I don't even think it was at all like you shouldn't call us one. It was just like we're not that good right now, and we realize it was the message I was getting. Anyways,
okay, that makes sense.
I guess you could interpret it. You can interpret it however you want. For those that watch it, feel free to do that. But the point was that I think they realized like, yeah, we're not that good right now, and we're not a super team until we start winning. And then they release that video, and they come out and they smack the number 1 team right in the face. And let's be honest, that game was all Bwipo and Santorin. That game was. I messaged you because I hadn't watched the game yet. This was after you had already watched it. I hadn't watched it, and I saw they got Azir and Sivir, and I'm like, those 2 champions are busted right now. This is going to be disaster. I thought TL was going to win for sure with those 2 champions. It didn't even matter. They just won with Set and what was it? Trundle?
Yeah.
Yeah, they absolutely ran over the game. And it's been a while since we've seen Bwipo take over the game like that. Was it like the start of spring since we've seen that? That's a really good sign, if you ask me.
Yeah, it was sort of at the beginning of spring where we saw Bwipo playing a bunch of unique champions, taking a lot of these aggressive 1v1s and, calling for jungle pressure and making early tower dives happen. And then we kind of saw a different style. I wouldn't say a different style out of Team Liquid, but they seem to just not go top as much. But that EG game proved that it's still a viable strategy, in the right conditions.
The other thing, too, that happened in that game was there was a little bit of, like, vintage Core JJ where, like,
level 4 roam top. Yeah.
Then Core JJ roams top and helps lock down another kill, and I was like, this was the Core JJ that we're used to seeing, which
patented level 4 roam Core JJ. He was playing Leona this time, not Nautilus, but
yeah, how many times have I said to you, like, I think TL's better when Core JJ is on an engaged champion rather than an enchanter? I mean, that one gank doesn't tell the whole story as to why, but it partially tells the story as to why. Like when he roams, he can find picks really, really well. And yes, I think that game would have been snowballed anyways, but he helped it just that little bit more. So
it basically, sealed the victory.
Yes, yeah.
Because I mean, the game was over at 8 minutes or something, and then there was that huge Fiesta play where almost all 5 members were topside, and that was where Bwipo had like stalled out for about 10 seconds with 4 people, and then all of TL got there and then wiped them, and it was a massacre.
I think that was after the Gore Drinker play, right? Where like, well, I mean, there was
a bunch of them.
Yeah, I guess there was a few of those. But the gank around 10 minutes where Inspired's like, I guess I gotta get top, and he goes to gank top, and then Bwipo just double kills them with a 10-minute Gore Drinker. Yeah, that was actually pretty disgusting as well.
9 minutes actually, but who's counting?
Oh, pardon me.
Okay.
Pardon me.
And I mean, to stay on the Bwipo train, we can talk about their game against FlyQuest quickly. But it was more of the same, less coordinated plays than just Bwipo smacking top lane 1v1. Mm-hmm. He was playing the Olaf and the Gwen, pretty much, set up that whole draft for the day after. But yeah, it was just another kind of 1v9 out of Bwipo. I don't think it really mattered what else happened within the game. Obviously, Hansama and Core JJ, I think, also had a really good game that game, just in terms of their laning and also using their pressure around the map. It's pretty interesting to see that this whole Lucian Nami lane, well, obviously it's a very relevant lane, but Lucian has now switched over to the first strike when they play with Nami, and they basically just, it's kind of like the Lucian of old, where you go for a lot of damage with the culling, because you put the Nami E onto the Lucian, you WR, and that will proc the Nami Electrocute and the culling and the Nami E damage, and then you have Gale Force as well to execute if necessary. So it feels like the new version of Lucian Nami was how like old mid Lucian was getting played, which I think is a bit interesting.
Okay, and anything else on TL before we swap over to the CLG discussion, the CLG side of things?
CLG had some bangers.
Dude, okay, like I did not believe in this team that much, right? I remember saying I thought this team was going to finish like 9-9, maybe 10-8 or something like that. Dude, I mean, I guess they could go 0-3 and that would be an absolute nightmare. I don't know who they play. But come on, man, this team is winning 2 games for every loss. That is actually insane where this team came from just last spring. And I guess the question that we have in our title this week is, why is CLG so different from spring? And the main area that I look at, everyone will look at, the switch from Dokla. Dokla goes in and Jenkins comes out. But it's more than that. Like, if you think back to spring, their bot lane was the way they won games, right? Like, if they won a game, it was because of their bot lane, and all of the discussion surrounded Luger and Poom, and the rest of them all sucked. Palafox was trash, Contracts was trash, and so was Jenkins. Like, they were all just awful on the top side of the map. And now it feels like they play through the top side of the map. Yes, I know I've said many times Dokla does overextend sometimes, and that does happen. But I think that's the play style that you want, is when you want someone who's going to play aggressive and pull people towards you. Because even when he does do that, they get things on the other side of the map. So it's so strange to me that, like, their bot lane is still the same. They're still there, but like their wins aren't about Luger and Poom at all anymore, or not even nearly as much. Even the game that we saw this weekend when he's on the Twitch, like Luger was the one that was kind of getting picked off in fights, and they couldn't really close out the game because, I mean, mind you, Afro had a great game and kept finding the Leona ults, but Luger was not the reason they won that game, which that to me shows the change from spring to summer. It's like now Contracts is playing really aggro. He's ganking like fucking crazy. He's ganking all over the map, and he's not running it down when he's doing that. Like, he ganked a lot last split. He would just get counter ganked and die, or just go way too ham when no one could follow up. And that's another shift as well. Just the whole top side of the map is incredibly improved.
Yeah, I remember Kobe saying something on one of the casts this weekend. I think it was in the Cloud9 game, but it could have been in the FlyQuest game, but I'm pretty sure it was in the C9 game. And he was talking about how CLG, they haven't really switched up their style too much from spring to summer. Although they did make the change with Jenkins and Dokla. I mean, I guess you can say that they're playing more towards top side and less towards bot side. But in terms of their aggression, I think the broadcast is doing a really good job this week in identifying, how aggressive CLG actually is in the early game. They pretty much lead almost every single important early game stat, whether that is number of kills pre 15 minutes, first blood percentage, first tower percentage, a few other stats, but Kobe was talking about how once you sort of master sort of the way to play, aggressive in the early game. I don't want to say master, because CLG is not, they're not masters or anything like that. But once you sort of figure out how to use that aggression successfully in the early game, and sort of, you have that sort of measured aggression, not just inting. Because I mean, in Spring Split, there was just a lot of inting. You saw Contracts going for a lot of plays that weren't even there. You saw aggressive laning from Palafox, which was constantly getting punished by ganks. But it seems that they've sort of figured out that style of how to use this like measured aggression within the early game, and are doing a lot better in terms of coordinating jungle and respective laners. Like Contracts isn't just going in solo, doing whatever the hell he wants. He's using his top pressure, mid pressure, bot pressure to have early impact on the map. And I think that has a little bit to it, because CLG, while, like I said, they haven't necessarily switched up their style a whole lot, they seem to be understanding how it works and how to sort of play the first 10-15 minutes of the game, because right now CLG is the best early game team in the league. Like, the stats don't lie there.
And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself when it comes to Contracts, because there are plays still that he does run it down a little bit. But I guess the guy that I would point to is, I would point to BLABER from years past, where like he would still int every once in a while, but the solid majority of his aggressive play came out successful. Things have since changed. We'll get into Cloud9 in a little bit. But I think the comparable play style would be Contracts to BLABER from the past seasons that we've seen. Would I say Contracts is as good as BLABER was? No, but there are some ints every once in a while, and so I don't want to get too like crazy. Like when he was 5-0 on the Wukong and he decides to fight the Trundle and he gets shut down, like that's an area that you can point to as a mistake. Now, a lot of people will say a 5-0 Wukong should be able to still kill the Trundle. I looked at his items. They both have Sunderer. The Trundle and Wukong both have Sunderer, except Wukong has tab eyes, whatever the hell the ninja tabbies are called now.
More stats for Trundle.
Plated steel caps or whatever.
Nobody
And
calls
so,
it
like,
that. Don't say that.
Yeah. So, well, I just couldn't think of the name. Anyways, that's the name. That was the only difference in their itemization. And so, as a jungler, like, you need to be like, before I take this 1v1, I need to see what items he has. And you would know that you don't beat the Trundle. Like, Trundle is always good into Wukong. And so you need to, I guess, realize what you're getting into when you take those fights. And so there's definitely still some areas for improvement, but it's so night and day, the amount of, I don't know, successful aggression that you get out of Contracts now than you did in spring.
Yeah, they just seem to have a much better understanding of what to be doing and how their timers work and everything like that. And to me, that's the biggest change. It's not, it's not that Dokla has come in and is starting to smash everybody. While he's definitely an improvement over Jenkins and has, some decent advantages from we've seen, like when with his champion pool, the ability to have like some pretty solid counter picks. It's just more like better play throughout the whole team, which to me is the difference. And I think everybody expected if CLG was going to make these massive improvements, you would have thought that it was going to be because of their bot lane. But it's not. It's just the rest of the team is just improving, and they've just continued to improve after a strong start, kind of a bit of a slump in the middle, and they seem to be ascending right now. They're on a 4-game win streak because they were 6-5, another 10-5.
I think
Okay.
5.
There we go. 5 games then.
Just because I think Card tweeted out something about 5 wins or something, so I think it's 5. Maybe it's 4. I don't know. The other thing too is they out macroed the shit out of FlyQuest. By the way, do you remember how they're on the inhib, and then
it was
they back off and FlyQuest goes to drag, and then they go back and take the inhib, like things like that, or they force Philip to TP, and then as soon as he TPs in, they're like, "Hey, we're just gonna backdoor your Nexus."
Yeah, I mean,
by the way, that seemed planned. I think CLG knew exactly what they were doing, waiting for that TP. They start the Baron. As soon as that TP happens, they back off, and you could tell they're instantly going for the backdoor play, knowing that there's no answer. That was like a really just smart play by CLG, just out macroed the shit out of Fly.
Yeah, I remember watching that game in real time, and I even tweeted it out. Like, I kind of just knew FlyQuest was going to lose when they're just A-ramming mid and not answering their side lanes. Like, they had triple stacked waves in both bot lane and top lane before the Elder was spawning. I think it was the Elder. It was either Elder or Baron, one of the two major objectives were spawning, and FlyQuest hadn't answered their side lanes, and Philip made the mistake of TPing to the fight rather than just walking it out, because if you TP, you lose the game. Because, if they should be tracking their TP timers, but when they know that if Philip TPs, Takui also doesn't have his TP up, and CLG had both of their teleports up, and like you said, it seemed like CLG knew exactly what they were doing. They saw Philip clear the wave, they saw him TP out, and then they just double TP'd in, and CLG did exactly what they needed to do. But I'm more on the FlyQuest flame of that side of things, because you need to be addressing your side lanes. I remember it was like, I don't know if it was a game in Spring Split or last year's Summer Split where it was like Golden Guardians versus 100 Thieves, where nobody touched their side lanes for like 8 minutes and everybody was just A-ramming mid. That's what that game kind of turned into between CLG and FlyQuest, where they were kind of just jockeying for position permanently, and CLG just went that extra mile to address the side lanes, every few minutes, and they got slow pushes going, and every time you could kind of see FlyQuest needing to back off for waves. That's what gave CLG the control to go step out to these major objectives, and FlyQuest made a mistake, CLG punished it.
Yeah. And I guess now we have to finish off with this question. In the battle for third, who would you take?
So I know from, like, I have some of the other games written down. I know CLG, they kind of have some layups. CLG, 2 of the 3 of their games are against TSM and Immortals. So realistically, you should win both of those games. I don't know what their other games are, and I don't know who Team Liquid plays. But unfortunately, I'm probably just going to have to favor Team Liquid just because of who they are.
Dude, I feel like
I feel like CLG is more likely to crack under the pressure. Like,
Yeah, I guess. The reason why I feel like such a shit is because like I continue to like doubt CLG, so to speak, right? Like we're hyping them up, they're playing so good, we're all excited. Oh, can they beat TL? No. And it's like, well, god damn it, like TL finally gets 1-0 weekend and I just buy like I just drinking the Kool-Aid, you know? So I but I mean, what can I say, man? Everyone expected this roster to be like this TL roster to eventually be the best. We saw 1 week of it, and so it's like it's kind of what we were waiting for. So I'm all aboard the hype train.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the
But
schedule
yes,
here,
I'm taking
and
TL.
both teams have some easy games, and they both play 100 Thieves. So to me,
Ooh,
it sort of feels like which team is more likely to beat 100 Thieves, and I think I would have to say TL is more likely to beat 100 Thieves, and therefore get win up on
yeah,
CLG. It sucks
I
though
think
because
so
it
too.
does feel like we're pussing out a bit here because I think everybody recognizes that CLG is improving and is a lot better. But and even with TL slumping per se, like it's hard to doubt them.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on CLG is Palafox has a good as year. I
Yeah,
think it's probably his best
Palafox
champion.
is definitely most improved. I remember people talking
Yeah,
about
I
like
agree.
who would
Well,
you
most
pick
improved
for.
this. Well,
Well, no,
maybe contracts is most
well,
improved.
no. I
Actually.
was gonna say people were talking about contracts for most improved player, and I think you could throw Palafox's name in there, and it would hold very similar value. Because to me, I thought Palafox was going to be a guy that CLG replaced 100%. I was like, they're for sure going to get rid of one of Jenkins or Palafox. I assumed that it was going to be both of them. And I was kind of surprised initially that Palafox was still there. I thought that they could have rolled with Triple from their academy team or even tried to bring in somebody else. But Palafox is also having a much better split, and I would definitely throw his sort of name in that hat there in terms of most improved player.
CLG could have realistically replaced all three players on the top side of the map, and no one would have said anything.
Yep.
Here we are. They replaced one of them, and they're a 10-5 team fighting for third with TL. What a world to live in. Cloud9 now?
Yeah, Cloud9. A pretty stinky weekend. 0-2. Obviously, me being the resident Cloud9 fan. Um, yeah, it was kind of disturbing, is the word that I would use, to see them kind of just continually throw their bodies at their opponents in hopes that they were going to win. Because, my God, this is probably the worst. Those two games were probably the worst two Cloud9 games of the split, I think. Regardless of the having them their subs in week one. Like this looked like summer split season 10 Cloud9 where they were like collapsing right in front of our eyes, where they're skipping steps, they're not clearing vision, they're not respecting their opponents, they're just going in permanently, and yeah, like I said, kind of disturbing.
And earlier I mentioned that like we used to always praise BLABER for being that guy that goes ham because most of the time his quote unquote coin flip plays would flip in his favor. And these aren't even coin flip plays that we're seeing. It's just running it down, honestly.
Yeah,
Very
and
indecisive. Even the one play, I think it was against 100 Thieves, he uses his clone on Wukong to engage and then decides last second, oh, I'm not going in. So, I mean, since all the comms are being released now, maybe we'll see why that happened this weekend. I don't know. But like you can tell they're not on the same page. They ended up getting a pick and then they ended up going to Baron after that. Like it actually worked out in their favor. But you could just tell that like his decisiveness of going in was not there, or at least it wasn't. Maybe he was about to go in and then the team was like, no, we can't fight here. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but you could tell it's not the same BLABER that we become so used to. And he was definitely the biggest standout in what was an obviously really poor O2 weekend. And so that's why I guess we asked the question, is BLABER a problem now?
well, he's both the problem and the solution, I would say, because
That's a
Cloud9,
very good way of putting it, actually.
yeah, ever since I guess it would be now season 10, Cloud9 has been a very kind of live or die by BLABER sort of team.
True.
I'll not to go on a bit of a history lesson here, but when
Oh,
Cloud9
please enlighten me.
was running a league in season 10 where they had a really dominant spring split and had that 9-0 start to the summer split, when Cloud9 really fell off, it was primarily BLABER who was one of the worst performers on the team. People will remember, or people would like to point out, the whole Sven, Ezreal, Yumi thing, and people talking about how Sven isn't playing well. Like, dude, if you go back and watch those games, BLABER and Niski were the two worst performing players on that roster for when they fell off. And I would say BLABER was the biggest,
Culprit.
yeah, the culprit. That's the word. And then even in season 11, when Cloud9 also in the summer split, obviously they won spring and BLABER was playing really really well, but that was Hecarim Udyr meta, so we don't even talk about that. But in the summer split, when we were kind of seeing Cloud9 struggle as well, it was once again sort of the mid jungle synergy of Cloud9. But I would like to point the finger at BLABER here, who just wasn't playing as well, and I think people thought that we were kind of coming back to god tier BLABER after we saw last weekend. He got player of the week. He was smashing people on Olaf. I don't remember what the second game was, but just that FlyQuest Olaf game really stuck out in my mind. And then this game, this weekend, holy moly, it was just like coin flip nation. Right at the beginning in CLG, they basically coin flipped the invade level 1. They have zero info and just straight up walk into the enemy jungle 2 versus 3.
CLG read them like a book.
They
right?
did, and
CLG knew what they were going to do.
What was really weird was that Cloud9 doesn't bring over Jensen in that invade, because they're going for a no vision invade, and obviously, when you're going for no vision, or no information, you should at least just kind of have Jensen shadow in case a fight breaks out, because it just turns into CLG's favor of being 3 versus 2. But it was actually kind of close. Like, if BLABER maybe gets the red buff, he can maybe heal up enough to live, or if Jensen is there from the get-go, they can maybe fight off CLG from contesting the red. But it was just really weird. And then, for the rest of that game, we saw BLABER pretty ineffective on the Trundle, although I will say it seemed pretty weird to just blind pick the Trundle in the first place. That was pretty confusing. I think Cloud9 was kind of outsmarting themselves, because the whole Poppy Trundle dynamic has been interesting in the LCS, where if people go for the Poppy blind pick, almost everybody will instantly pick Trundle into it. And if you don't want to go for that trade, you either ban one of the two champions to prevent that from happening. And Cloud9 leave the Poppy up and opt into taking the Trundle blind, which, like I said, was pretty confusing and felt like they were sort of trying to outsmart themselves. And then they actually banned Poppy in the second phase, leaving up Wukong, which has been one of the consensus best junglers for the entire summer split. And Contracts just kind of completely smurfs on them. Basically gets a lead from that early game. Dokla ends up getting a red buff top lane, although he kind of inted it. But Contracts just ran the show in that game, where you just saw him. He didn't matter. If somebody walked up into his face, he was WE ulting onto them. And we saw multiple times that game where he jumps onto Berserker and Sven, killing both of them, or jumping onto BLABER to burn his flash, or jumping onto Jensen to, push for vision. It was just a complete stomp. And honestly, BLABER is to be at fault for that game, specifically against CLG.
Yeah, I really like he's the problem and the solution. Because if you envision Cloud9, okay, let me paint a little picture for you. They come back, they 3-0 next week, and they actually make a playoff push. Who do you think is responsible for it?
Most likely BLABER.
I could kind of see it being BLABER, yeah.
Especially with the way that the team has been performing. Fudge hasn't been anything special. He's been all right. He's been solid, been playing scaling.
Well, Berserker, that's what my next point is going to be. Sorry, go ahead.
Finish I assume we're kind of on the same, mindset here. Berserker and Sven, they haven't been anything special per se. I think Sven has done a better job of limiting his mistakes. But, this split, Cloud9 has been all about BLABER. And, he's going to be the one to lead into victory, or run it down to defeat.
Yeah, and I remember at the start of the split, I remember saying I had full faith that Cloud9 was going to be a good team. And I also remember saying that, that was despite a lot of question marks. I still thought that they were going to be good, even despite all the question marks. Fudge is going back top, right? That's a role swap. Yes, he was originally a top laner, but a role swap nonetheless. He had been playing mid for the last 4 or 5 months or whatever it is. And then Jensen I was also off for, again, the however many months that was. So Jensen's just getting back into things. It's you got Sven, who's first time support. You got language barrier. So I remember pointing out all of these things, and I still thought this team is just too good. The players are too good for them to not figure it out. And I feel so much less confident in that now. We've got 1 week left for them to get their shit together. 2, I guess. Well, when do playoffs start, actually?
I don't know if there's a week break in between, actually, so I'm not sure.
I guess you could say, but I guess we should say not 1 week. We should say 2 weeks because they're going to make playoffs, right? So maybe 2 or 3 weeks to figure it out. Which, regardless, even if it is 3 weeks, let's say there's a week in between, that's still not a lot of time to figure out what I would consider to be a lot of problems. Fudge has not looked like Fudge was amazing in the top lane last year, right? He had one of the highest, like one of the best like improvement arcs of almost any LCS player that we had ever seen. He was so bad in lock in to begin with, and then he was one of their best players, and now it's like we haven't seen him, like, I don't know, reignite that, whatever you want to call it. Honestly, it just hasn't been the same for him either. And so I guess what I'm saying is there's question marks all over the map for this team and not a lot of time to figure it out. And so I'm hitting the panic button for you and the other Cloud9 fans. JNT,
Yeah, I
are
don't
you
know.
hitting the panic button?
I don't know if it's panic time. I guess what I would say is maybe time to panic once you drop into lower bracket because then you don't have that free win or that free loss. I mean, but the main reason why the 0-2 this weekend specifically sucks is it does somewhat put Cloud9 out of the race for those top 4 seeds in playoffs, and it is going to make your life that much more difficult when playoffs do come around because of the caliber team that you're going to face. You know, the top seeds in 100 Thieves and EG, most likely, although not, guaranteed at this point, they're going to have first
Yeah,
round
they get a
buys.
buy, right?
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
first round buys. They get to get information on all these other teams before they get to play them. And then you look at even Team Liquid or CLG, they're going to be fighting for third place and likely is going to be playing FlyQuest in the first round as opposed to Cloud9, who is going to be playing one of either TL or CLG. Cloud9 probably in their minds would definitely want to play CLG rather than Team Liquid. But based off what we just saw this weekend, like if this version of Cloud9 shows up, they're going to lose. Like, however,
Yeah.
I don't think it's likely that we see this same version out of Cloud9. It did feel just super inty, and I'm not really it probably sounds like it. I'm not trying to take credit away from both CLG and 100 Thieves. I think more specifically in the CLG game, that definitely felt like Cloud9 really just not knowing what to do and making a ton of mistakes. Then CLG kind of dominating them, but there has to be something to be said for punishing all these mistakes, and CLG did a great
Yeah.
job of it this entire weekend.
Yeah, I agree. The copium side of things is that C9 did have a tough weekend with playing 100 Thieves, who is kind of looking like the best team right now. We kind of had that discussion. Definitely one of, if not the best team. And then CLG also looking really good right now as well. So even though it wasn't, even though it was an 0-2, it still wasn't the easiest week if you want to have some copium for the Cloud9 fans.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I know I did talk a lot about the CLG game, but just kind of quickly to touch on the 100 Thieves game, like there was also some like pretty big concerns in that game. It wasn't as inty as the CLG game, but I kind of said this at the beginning, like Cloud9, they died to that dive, level 4, when they saw Abadage and Closer running down from mid lane the entire time. Like they had a ward in the little bush above the red buff, and they saw Closer and Abadage run right on top of that ward. They knew that they were getting dove bot lane and actively
they answered the
chose.
TP
Well, I know,
though.
but I mean that's also at the same time like you have to waste a resource to try to save that play. So they TP Jensen in. They kind of 100 Thieves smartly backs off the dive, but 100 Thieves once again they recognize that they can redive this quite easily because you have these really squishy early game champions in Silas and Sona. And 100 Thieves, they play it well, they make the dive happen, and that's that. And we kind of talked about it before, BLABER being really indecisive on the Wukong in that game, not necessarily knowing or on the same page as his own team when to engage. The main play that sticks out in my mind from that game was their like random chase that they were doing in bot lane, where Berserker and BLABER try to flash onto FBI, who kind of flash ghosts away, and they do this random back and forth between, bot lane where 100 Thieves starts running at them and then they back off, and Cloud9 then's like, oh, let's run back at them again. And by that time, Abadage has run all the way down. His ult is back up, chases them down, and they like wipe them again. Cloud9 almost came back in the game when Berserker almost made like a super play where he dove into the entire enemy team and almost killed 2 people. But at that point, you were kind of down like 4 or 5k gold, gave 100 Thieves Baron, and, GG.
Yeah, the list of questionable plays was pretty high over the weekend from Cloud9. I even just remembered now, BLABER starts up Rift Herald when Fudge has not even anything close to Prio. And then Top roams down to Herald and just kills BLABER. It's like, what the hell did you think was going to happen? Like, that's pretty basic, like League 101. You don't start an objective without Prio. That's pretty,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
And
forcing plays that just make no
they're
sense.
doing the classic C9 where they don't give a fuck about vision. They don't care.
Yeah,
They'll
they
start
don't clear any vision.
like they don't clear. They dude in that 100 Thieves game they cleared no vision. They 100 Thieves had
That's
eyes
funny.
on them literally the entire game, and C9 couldn't do anything because they were just they were just desperate. The whole time
Yeah.
felt like, and they
Okay,
didn't need to be.
let's talk FlyQuest now. Let's
Yeah,
go over to
FlyQuest.
FlyQuest.
They're sat
So
down there at sixth place. They're what 7-8 right now.
yeah, they're one game behind Cloud9, so they can catch them.
Yeah,
I guess I
barring
don't know what the
another
schedule looks like.
barring another Cloud9 disaster, it's possible for them to move up to fifth place. I don't know if it's technically possible for I guess it is possible for them to go up to sixth, or sorry, to fourth. If TL went 0-3 and FlyQuest went 3-0, because I think FlyQuest they have a 1-1 head-to-head against Team Liquid, so therefore you could play a tiebreaker. Very, very unlikely. I think it is most likely that this team finishes in sixth place. Obviously, maybe not where they were hoping
FlyQuest,
for.
they play. I have the schedule here. They play TSM, Immortals, and the first game is against 100 Thieves on Friday.
Yeah, so
they
I
should go
mean,
2-1, right?
they're looking at a 1-2 or a 2-1, probably. But I think that FlyQuest probably thought that they were going to be, in the more the fifth place range and the sixth place range. I think they obviously had a pretty good middle of the split. Where at one point they were 7-4 in the standings, but they've had 2-0-2 weekends in a row, losing some easier games as well, which is kind of unfortunate. And it keeps them in the upper bracket, which is just advantageous because you don't start in the lower bracket like seventh and eighth. But they definitely are going to have some hills to climb with tough playoff series, regardless of where they end up.
I didn't have too many problems with how they played this weekend. I thought that, again, they ran into good teams. CLG played pretty damn good. TL played pretty damn good. I thought, and especially the CLG game, that game could go either way, right? That's like knife's edge kind of game. You mentioned how they weren't answering sideways earlier, and I think I know the reason. I think the reason was simply that a lot of the time Twitch did not have cleanse. And so they're thinking that they can easily start a fight because you don't need to get right on top of the Twitch to kill him when you have Pillar and Leona, right? The combo with Jose Dioto and Afro worked really, really well, which is one of the reasons why Luger couldn't close out the game on the Twitch. It was because there was just a lot of times that you could blow his cleanse by you use Pillar and Leona ult. Right, like you don't have to full engage there to force out sums, and then once that sum is forced out again, the Leona ult cooldown is so much shorter than cleanse. And so my theory was they thought they could really fight and they could really easily force a fight because you don't have to go in too hard to engage on that. And that was one of the reasons why I think CLG decided to let's backdoor because our Twitch can't, even with a Lulu, can't really survive because their engage is so free. So that's my theory, anyways, as to why FlyQuest was just kind of A-ramming was because they thought it was advantageous to them. And it kind of was because they were behind for a lot of that game, but still managed to stay in it because they managed to lock down. Afro had a great game on the Leona, and Luger was hating life because the Leona was really annoying. So
yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Where FlyQuest, it did feel like kind of when the game started getting super, super late, FlyQuest really found out and figured out how they wanted to team fight. But I still think that it's just bad practice to not even be, answering your side waves, especially in that ending sequence where they had triple stacked waves in both lanes. And, unfortunately, FlyQuest was kind of betting on themselves to win through the team fight. And, they just kind of lost track of the bigger picture, which was, the TPs in the back door.
I also got to give credit to Philip playing the Gwen against Bwipo's Olaf. I thought that was going to get ugly quick. He held on for almost the whole laning phase. It wasn't definitely the whole laning phase. It wasn't until I think it was around 20 minutes when he finally died, and they ended up running him down in a side lane. Like, I don't know. Kudos to because that's a rough matchup first of all, and an abusable one, especially when you're going up against someone like Bwipo who clearly has practice to play into the Gwen. So I thought that Philip actually had a pretty good game and held on for most of that. I think most of that FlyQuest game was just sad because Johnson had to blow Flash level 1. on the Aphelios.
Yeah.
And then Santorin was like, "Oh, he's got no flash. I'm gonna." And then remember he was on the Poppy. He flashed over the
Yeah.
Dragon Pit wall and then ganked from behind. Like the game was just over there. And then the ganked again, and then his flash. Like he didn't have flash. Johnson didn't have flash for the first like 10 minutes of that game,
Yeah.
which is
That's the
not
OG Kickus
ever.
play.
Yeah, that's nothing you want. You don't want that when you're. Well, you don't want that in any game. Let's just be honest.
Yeah. For the people who didn't get my reference, Kickus was like he was an EU jungler who was pretty known for flashing over walls to make ganks happen. I thought that was
he
funny.
like when I think of Kikis, I always think of the Udyr. Is that just because of the flash bear slap call from
Yeah, that was where he
Quickshot?
that's where he was playing blue side and he flashes over from the enemy tribe rush over the wall to gank them from behind. That's that play.
Yeah, I just remember the call from Quickshot.
Yeah,
Anyways,
unicorns of love. That team was
I still
beast.
think FlyQuest is playing pretty. I still think FlyQuest is actually playing pretty good. A lot better than their loss streak would indicate. I guess I would put it that way. They ran into TL at the wrong time, and I guess you could also say they ran into CLG at the wrong time. Actually, yeah, copium for FlyQuest guy, but
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking
yeah,
at their
I don't think they're
schedule.
that bad.
I was looking at their schedule. They did have a pretty rough couple 4 games in a row. They had TL, 100 Thieves, CLG, and Cloud9 in their last 4 games, which,
Yeah.
based on our expectations, I don't think going 0-4 is a surprise or, something to be concerned about.
Yeah, I don't really have much more to say about FlyQuest. I think that they're still a good team, not a great team. They won't be a free win when it comes to playoffs. At least I don't think they will. Anyways, I think they'll put up a fight. I don't think they'll go far. That's kind of where I
Yeah.
land on FlyQuest.
They're definitely a step up above the teams fighting for the lower bracket spots, and I would expect them to handily beat those teams should they end up dropping to the lower bracket in the first round. But who knows? I think this team, they're good enough to be competitive against the other teams that are going to be the other teams that they're likely to go up against in Cloud9, CLG, or Team Liquid.
Yeah, which is definitely above my expectations as of like a month ago or whatever it was. I thought this team was just going to fall off a cliff. And I don't think that they have as far as their performance goes. They may have as far as the record goes, but I don't think their performance has been that bad. So, but speaking of the rest of the teams, that's where we go to next.
And we got a banger at the bottom.
The monkey fight. Simpsons meme, scrapping for the bottom of the standings, those last playoff spots. They want the lower bracket run, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know where to start. I don't have much to say about TSM, quite frankly.
Well, here's what I'll say to start this off, because it's somewhat interesting the way that the schedule is sort of played out for this last Super Week, because although we have all of these teams that are very, very close to each other, like for example, we talked about EG100 Thieves, but they don't play each other. They actually play, some pretty easy teams. So it's likely that we're likely to see a lot of tiebreakers, because a lot of the head-to-heads between the majority of these teams are very, very close. So every single team of TSM, Golden Guardians, Immortals, and Dignitas are 1-1 head-to-head against each other, except for Golden Guardians and Dig, where Golden Guardians is 1-0 on them, and they play in this last week. So to me,
Gotcha.
in terms of the 4 teams at the bottom here, that Golden Guardians and Dignitas game is very, very pivotal. Golden Guardians, should they win that, very likely to move on, because that's kind of the only easy game that all these bottom teams have. I'll read out the remaining games for a lot of these teams. TSM play CLG, Cloud9, FlyQuest. Not necessarily the top of the top, but still, relative to TSM's performance, much, much better.
That feels like an 0-3 still, right?
Yeah, and Immortals.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I could see TSM picking up a game, but if I had to predict they go 1-2 or 0-3,
exactly,
I think I go 0-3.
And then Immortals, Cloud9, FlyQuest, and CLG, the same 3 teams, just in different orders.
Okay, I give them an 0-3 as well. I could see them picking. I would give them a better shot of going 1-2 than TSM, just because I think Immortals has gotten better since the start of the split, where they were pure dumpster fire. But I still give them the 0-3 as well.
Yeah, and then Golden Guardians, EG, Team Liquid, and Dignitas. Obviously, that Dig game being the very pivotal one. And then Dignitas, Team Liquid, Golden Guardians, EG. So it's pretty weird how this has sort of happened, where TSM and Immortals have the same schedule in different orders, and Golden Guardians and Dignitas have the same schedule in different orders. So, while we're not necessarily likely to see, a a lot of change within these standings. However, it's going to be very, very important for every single game to just for one team to pick up one win is so important, and that's why I point out that
Yeah.
Golden Guardians Dignitas game as the biggest one, because should Golden Guardians win, puts them to 5 wins, likely to move on. If Dignitas wins, that would tie them with Golden Guardians and Immortals, and potentially we could see some banger tiebreakers. That's a 3-way tiebreaker for 8th place. If Golden Guardians or Immortals picks up 1 win, then they would tiebreak with TSM. Like, I feel like we're in for some extra games on Sunday for sure. Maybe even we'll have a bonus day of LCS on Monday if we get really spicy with some 3-way ties.
Man, the 3-way tie for 8th place would really be the best monkey fight
That'd be so
meme,
funny.
right? Like, that would actually be I'm cheering for that. I want the fight for that 8th spot.
Yeah, give us that the 3-3 worlds group from last year type thing down here. That's what I want.
And from you reading off their schedules, it sounds like to me, I guess I'm getting ahead of myself as far as the predictions go, but I think there's going to be 1 win out of the
Yep.
I don't know, I guess it's
The
12
games. Yep.
they all play. It's hard to say because like some of them play each other, so it's technically not 12 games. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be
It's
1
11.
win out of all. Yeah, and I think Golden Guardians is going to get that one. That's it. Even though they look like shit. Let's talk about them. Actually, there's
Golden
a
Guardians
place to
sucks
actually
a
talk
dick.
about something. Yeah, I'm going to let you take this one away because this is the place where there's actually something to talk about with these teams. So go ahead, Jane T. Get it off your chest.
Well, I'll circle back to this one thing that I briefly mentioned in the earliest segment we talked about with the broadcast, but Golden Guardians put out a video on their YouTube channel, and it was primarily discussing the whole River trade, why they made it, and kind of the reasonings behind it. And they themselves thought that acquiring River and putting Leader in was going to be a better strategy, to where they're going to have a more aggressive mid laner and a more selfless jungler to help their laners, play aggressive and extend leads, versus the combo of Pride Stalker and a Blaze Olive, which they said was a very Pride Stalker. They were playing very jungle focused, and I found that comment a little bit interesting because pretty much all Pride Stalker has been doing the split is permafarming. He doesn't really gank a whole lot, and I think a Blaze Olive and Licorice, are kind of getting hung out to dry a little bit, because they're almost receiving no jungle attention in the early game. And, don't get me wrong, Licorice and Ablaze all of themselves are making mistakes, overextending in lanes and, not backing off when they should and just dying to ganks. However, it sounds like Golden Guardians has changed up their entire philosophy of their team with 2 weeks to go in the split. And, even though I don't agree with the whole 8 teams making playoffs thing, like, you're kind of like, you're throwing, like, you yourselves are throwing by switching up your entire team identity with 5 games left to play in the season. If you were to ask me, this current iteration of Golden Guardians with River and Leader compared to the previous one, obviously I would say that roster has more potential. However, we can't like reinvent the wheel in 5 games here. Like, it feels like Golden Guardians is, I don't want to say they gave up, because they didn't give up. They went and traded for River, but I don't know what they expected. Like, did they think that they were really going to turn it around in a span of 5 games? And to not make playoffs with the way that the league is, gone this year, with Dig being so horrible, Immortal starting off the split so horrible, TSM is just not even TSM anymore. To miss playoffs, that is just horrid. Like, they've lost 8 games in a row or something, or 7 games in a row. This team fucking sucks. I don't want them to make playoffs. I would rather Dig win and we get a 3-way monkey tie for 8th, and one of Dig or Immortals make it than Golden Guardians, because I don't think Golden Guardians deserves to make it. I'm going to be real here. They suck.
So there's a lot to unpack there. I guess I'll start with the River move, because my original theory was, and I think they even may have come out and said something like, we want to make a push and we think River will help us do that, make a playoff push. And while I do think that is true to a certain extent, I realize that I think part of their move is also, it's just simultaneously setting up for next year, because I do think they have River under contract. I think they thought Ole would have his green card by now. So I don't think they wanted to take him out. I think it was just, let's see what we have with Leader, because Olive isn't working out anyways.
Yeah, he's horrible.
So it's like, it's kind of like a mix of, let's get River in there. We think that he's definitely our better jungler, to the better jungler over Pride Stalker to make a push. So that's one. The other thing is, even if Leader doesn't work out, Olive isn't working out anyways. So let's see what we have with Leader, because if they think Leader is good, then they could run with him next year as well. It's kind of like a tryout while also trying to make playoffs, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It's like a weird little mix, is what I think is going on. I think they will keep Ole. I think they're going to get him a green card. And I think it's just about replacing their solo laners. Licorice is also atrocious.
Yeah.
He was like not good at the start of the split. He's just gotten worse and worse and worse. He's been awful as well. And I really, really want. I saw your tweet where you tweeted at Mark and Azael, I think, asking them for their thoughts on Licorice. I was hoping that you would get on Hotline League tonight by posting the. Did you even post?
Yeah, just in the I'm not in the subs chat anymore, so I just posted in the general
Yeah.
one, but that shit's got like takes out the was.
Yeah, but they take a lot of takes from there as well. Anyways, your take was basically like, what about the drop off that we've seen out of Licorice? Is this not one of the craziest, or how would you word it? What was your take on Licorice?
It was like, if people remember, like when Licorice joined Cloud9, he joined in season 8 and was there from season 8 to season 10, and he was consistently voted as one of the best tops in the league. Was consistently getting either all pro team 1 or 2. I think in season 9, everybody agreed that he was actually the better top laner between, the trio of Licorice, Someday, and Impact, who were kind of the top dogs at the time. And, this guy, he was like kind of the future of Cloud9 before Fudge came in, when they kind of changed up the whole, thing there by moving Licorice at the end of season 10, kind of after some obvious disputes within the team. But to go from all pro number 1 for almost all pro 1 or 2 for 3 years in a row to one of the worst players in your position. And I think of this split, you could even throw Licorice's name in there for like one of the worst players in the league. Like, that is like, I was trying to think as I was like watching that game and making that tweet, like, I don't think we've seen a drop off from a singular player like this. I can't, like, one does not even come to mind.
It's a pretty steep drop, but my point in being
maybe like Huhi pre-roll swap support.
Yeah, maybe.
Because like that guy was bad when he, after like MSI season 6 or World season 6. I guess
the point that I was getting at was I wanted to hear from Mark or Azael. Usually Azael is not shy about just how players are performing as well. So I was really expecting something out of Azael mostly, or wanting to hear something from Azael, because I do think that is like one of the biggest standouts. And honestly, that's to me where Golden Guardians is going to go next year. There's rumors that some teams might be leaving the league. I don't think Golden Guardians is one of them. I don't think they would have picked up River if that was the case.
Yeah, and especially because they didn't trade him for anything, so they probably had to fork out some cash.
Yeah, it's all speculation at this point. Anyways, I think that for sure, if you're going to change players on this roster, Licorice has to go. Your solo lanes is your biggest problem right now, and I think that's kind of what they're trying to figure out. At the same time, while also trying to make a playoff push. It's a really weird scenario.
Yeah, and kind of like I said at the beginning, it just feels a bit strange to go for a playoff push, quote unquote, while also changing the whole team in terms of how they want to play. And I'll reference this video. I don't remember. It's on their YouTube channel. If you want to go watch the video, go watch the video. But it was basically both Anero and their GM Danon talking a lot about how they didn't feel like their current play style was working out with, in their words, not mine, a very jungle-focused team who was playing around Pride Soccer and letting him get all the farm on the map and, sort of trying to play through him, even though I don't even see that at all. Like, that didn't make any sense to me when I heard that. To go to a more solo lane approach with Briver being a very supportive jungler. And I don't think you can expect to figure that out in 5 games.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we read off the teams, like, they need to win that game against Ignitas. If they don't win that game against Dig, they might not make it. And I mean, I think they will I think they will beat Dignitas, but honestly, I'm rooting against them.
Couple last quick things on these teams. Got to shout out Blue for the Silas game. Immortals probably really regrets not banning the Silas. He kept stealing a Mumu ult and was just the better Amumu in that game against Ignar. Got to give props there. And then there was the outplay bot as well, where he 1v2'd. He Blue is flanking and he forces them off of the dragon and then does that outplay afterwards. Just actually a huge pop-off moment for him. Definitely something that Dignitas needed going their way.
I said this last week. I will not tolerate any Blue slander. That guy is actually pretty good. Like, That guy better
He's
be on
one
the
of the
team
better
next.
players
He,
on a sea of bad players, I guess.
I hope he's on a relevant team next year. Whether that's in North America, whether that's in EU. I mean, unlikely to be EU, but I don't want to see this guy just get dropped to academy or go back to ERL. Like I think this guy deserves a starting spot, and I hope that he's going to be on a team because I think he deserves it because I think he's had a pretty solid year overall. I think coming into it, people expected him to be like Aika or Aika 2.0, but he's been at a similar level to Takui. I see. Like you have your top dogs in mid, and you have that level below, and that's where I kind of put like the Takuis, the Blues. I don't even know if I throw Maple in there, but I don't know.
Yeah. The last thing that stood out to me was, well, Revenge was starting to have some pretty good weeks, and we were like, okay, Revenge, you're not running it down every week. And then he didn't really have the greatest week either, honestly.
Nope. I said it before.
The biggest
Revenge
standout to
has
me,
3 bad games for every 1 good game.
yeah, the standout play was when he TP flanks without ultimate or flash, I think it was, on the Yone, and I was like, and he just dies, and I'm like, that I don't see ever a world where you make that play. And so like when you see things like that, you start to question, like, I don't know, I guess a player's mindset on stage, because those are just plays that don't make any sense. So it was kind of sad to see Revenge start to pick up the pace and then just fall right back down again, especially when it was like against Dignitas. Like, you got to win that game.
Yeah, that was
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That was like Immortals probably could have stamped their ticket to playoffs with that. Because having that one extra win, like we'll get to TSM in a second here, but having that one extra win that TSM has over Immortals and Golden Guardians is really going to help their chances going into this next week.
Give me some of your thoughts on TSM. I didn't have much. The only thing that like
Chime
stands
played
out
really
in my
well.
head is not gameplay related. So
Oh yeah, I mean Chime had a pretty good weekend. I know the broadcast was hyping him up a lot, and I think he did. However, to me, TSM is just slightly above this dog shittery of Golden Guardians, Immortals, and Dignitas, but unfortunately nowhere close to even FlyQuest, who's up in 6th place. Like, if FlyQuest were to play TSM, I'd expect a pretty dominant like 3-1 or 3-0.
yeah. Yeah.
Because they just don't have any they don't have any team coordination. They look good against the bad teams, but they get shit on by every single good team. Their team coordination is just bad against good teams.
He had a pretty good Ornn game. I remember his ultimates were actually pretty good, if I remember right. So that was the one thing that stood out, I guess, for TSM.
Oh,
Not
man,
really
dude.
much else stood out.
In the like TSM,
What?
I think it was the TSM versus Dignitas game, or maybe it was the Dignitas versus Immortals game, where like Hoon was like getting praised for hitting his Ornn ults, like just hitting one person with his Ornn ults because of his like shit Ornn game the week before. I mean,
his debut, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to go back to Dignitas, but that whole team minus Blues balls. Like, get him out of there. Like, maybe you keep Bio, but I don't know.
Look at Bio, yeah.
Maybe he hangs around, but
yeah. I would even say Bio's still good. He had a really rough start to the split, but he's been good. It's just you don't really expect much out of the rest of that team. The only thing that stands out for me, like that I can remember from this weekend when it comes to TSM, was the voice comms, because they have Speaka's like, guys, I want to kill Biofrost. I don't know.
yeah, that was funny.
I don't know what he's got against Biofrost. Guys, I want to kill Biofrost. Get him.
Well, he played with them the one split.
Yeah, I know. I guess it's just funny because I guess they're just ex-teammates, so it wants to kill an old teammate. I suppose that's really all it is. But that was really funny. And then in the post-game interview, Pastry Time's like, yeah, we had your guys' voice comms. And he goes, oh, I said some stuff, man. Like, that was really funny, too. I can't say enough about the voice comms. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. It's authentic really as well. You know what I'll say about it, too, is like, I think that's one of the reasons why I like Champions Queue, is when I'm watching a stream of Champions Queue, the comms are so good. And I wonder if this change would have even happened if it weren't for Champions Queue existing.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe people that run the LCS were watching Champions Queue and is like, hey, it's actually really nice having comms. Maybe we should decide to bring that back. Maybe. Not sure. Speculating.
Okay, well, to close this out, give me your predictions. What are the two teams making it?
Let me look at the standings again. Immortals.
Okay.
Immortals TSM, I guess.
Okay, so that would mean that, I mean, we won't jump the gun here, but that would mean that Golden Guardians loses to Dig, and then Immortals would beat Golden Guardians in a tiebreaker to make it to 8th, because they'd be tied and they have the 1-1
Yeah.
head-to-head, so they'd have to play a tiebreaker.
Yeah, the better two teams are Immortals, TSM. Otherwise, I would go with Immortals, Golden Guardians. Because they still have good players on that Golden Guardians team. They're playing like shit right now. But they do still have good players on that team. So, well, I guess maybe not with Olay not there. Stixay's still been okay, and River's still good. He's playing really aggro, which is what they wanted out of him. But yeah, I guess TSM Immortals are my picks.
Yeah, I think I have to go with Immortals, or sorry, not Immortals, TSM and Golden Guardians. And the only
Just because they
reason,
get the win against
yeah,
Dig.
I think they do win that game against Dig, and TSM just has that extra win above them. Like, once again, I won't go too far down the rabbit hole here, but 8 teams making playoffs sucks. But, if 2 got to make it, it'll probably be TSM and Golden Guardians, I think.
Okay. Let's get into the top 5 lists. Let's have a quick little discussion there.
Yeah, they released 2 more top 5 lists. I'll read them out if you don't know. They released Jungle pretty early on last week, and the top 5 was, I guess I'll go number 5 for no reason ever. I'll go upwards, but 5 was Santorin, 4 Meteos, 3 Svenskeren, 2 BLABER, and 1 Xsmithy. This feels like the one and only list which they got perfect. I mean, there's still 2 more to come. But this list feels pretty indisputable. I don't know if there's any other relevant players that I would throw in there to begin with, and I wouldn't even switch up the order at all.
Yeah, I like the order as well. The thing that's interesting is when I was listening to the dive this past weekend, and the one point that I thought they brought up that made a lot of sense to me was how good Meteos was at the start of his career and how like people were looking to his gameplay to learn how to play jungle. And I thought that was something that I kind of overlooked a little bit. And so maybe you could push him higher. The only problem is it's really hard to push him in the Blabbers and the Svenskeren areas because those two guys were really, really good. And I think what this list shows is historically, we've always talked about how jungle is the best role for North American players. I think this list shows why. These guys are 5 really good junglers, really good players just in general.
Yeah, funny,
So
funny
I
that
like the
funny
list
that
as
2
well.
of them are EU, but they did spend the majority of their careers in North America. But
Yeah, regardless. Yeah. I mean, that's an old story. I've gotten over that a long time ago. If that's something that bothers people, they're not watching LCS anymore because it's been that way for a while. I remember thinking, now I don't even remember what the top list was anymore, but I remember thinking that like the top 4 of these players would be better than the top laners that the whole top laner list or whatever, right? You
yeah,
have
yeah,
Impact in there. And if we were talking about just best players, where would I put Impact? I would probably actually put him behind Meteos. So he would probably, maybe he'd be around the same area as Santorin. Even though Impact was like a great top laner, I just think our junglers were definitely our best role. And so I feel like that's my hot take, and I think a lot of people will disagree with that. But for me, I would probably put the top 4 junglers ahead of Impact.
that's a hot take, but I can see it. And
Yeah.
they released the top supports. In I don't know if it was right before LCS started or kind of during it or whatever, but I'll read them out once again. Just lost the link. Let me click on it again. Already here. Number 5. It's loading. I'm getting trolled. Number 5,
It's
Lemonation,
Lemonation.
your boy from Cloud9. Number 4, Biofrost. Number 3, Vulcan. Number 2, Aframu. And number 1, CoreJJ. Now, this one is a list that I do not agree with. Here,
Before, can I guess where? Oh, I don't even
okay.
want to guess where. I don't want.
No,
Well, I
no.
kind of want to guess.
Okay, go ahead.
I think Aframu is number 1. This
Yep.
is something else I
Yep.
heard them talking about on the
Yep.
dive, but the thing is, I don't know where they landed on this conversation because I was multitasking as I was listening to it. So like I don't remember exactly what they said, but I was definitely like, Afro's gotta be number 1, man. This guy has, dude, I this feels like a theme since we started this podcast that Afro continues to be underrated. And it's like, just because he doesn't go to Worlds, I feel like he doesn't get the I don't know, respect that he deserves. Core JJ has been great, but Afromu has been so good, and he's been in the league for so long. I couldn't believe he wasn't number 1. So that's the biggest area that I look to. Biofrost was really good as well. I don't really care much about Lemonation. I don't think he played long enough for me to care that much. I
I
don't know.
don't
Is there
think he
someone
should
that
be
would
on
go
the
over?
list. I don't think he should be on
Is
the
there
list.
anyone that should be above Lemon? Who should be on there? I can't
I don't know.
name some players and maybe I have an opinion.
Well, I guess what I would say is, yeah, I'm definitely agree. I think Afro should have been one. I also would have switched Biofrost and Vulcan. While I think Vulcan has been, a pretty strong support for the majority of his LCS career, he wasn't anything special for his time on Clutch Gaming, and he was kind of hot and cold on Cloud9 a couple times. So, but
I would argue that when he was playing for Clutch, though, that was not a good team, right?
yeah,
Like I don't think that team was anything great, and I
they
think
made Worlds with
he was
him.
one of the reasons why.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna say, I think
Okay.
he's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why they make Worlds, right?
Fair enough, yeah. But I think I would still switch him with Biofrost. I do think that's a little bit of recency bias there, having Bio at 4 and Vulcan
Yeah.
at 3. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a Cloud9 fan, but Lemon Nation probably should not be on that list. No offense, no offense to that guy, but he was good. He was good for maybe like a year in like season.
So who would it be, like X Special or something? I could see X Special actually taking that spot.
I don't know if I'd put him over Lemon Nation, but
What other supports are there that, because for him to not be there, someone needs to go, right?
we could find somebody better, man.
Dude, I'm sure there's someone's listening to this right now and they're thinking of a player that that should obviously stand out, and it's just not coming to mind. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, here I'll do some looking up on the side to see if I can come up with a name. But while I do that, they still obviously have the ADC and mid laner lists to come out, and to me, I feel like those are the lists where we're gonna have like the least amount of discussion in terms of the top, because to me, like 1 and 2 on both should be extremely obvious. Can we agree on that?
Doublelift, Sneaky, Bjergsen, Jensen?
Yeah, I think without any question, those are probably going to be the beginnings of those two lists. I guess to probably
my fear
round
is,
out.
like, I'm forgetting someone. That's my fear.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
No,
like
I
don't
get
want to
you.
forget someone, but
Yeah, I mean, but other than that, I think you're probably going to have players that like FBI might sneak into the ADC list, although he hasn't been in the LCS that long. I mean, I say that long. He's been around since season 9, and
I would put FBI on there. I think
he'll probably end up somewhere around there. I'm trying to think of other ADCs to potentially throw in there. You could even put Stixay in there. I mean, he hasn't been the best.
Sure.
He hasn't been the best ADC, but it
Dude,
feels
he
like
was good
80
when he came into the league, man.
Well, I think ADC is one of the roles. I mean, obviously, I don't have the numbers, but it feels like ADC is one of the roles that has the most turnover in the LCS, and that's why like Doublelift, Sneaky were such staples of the league. Like they were always number 1 and number 2, and similar to Bjergsen and Jensen, it felt like mid was their mid is like, I don't know. It's hard to guess, but mid probably feels like the highest imported role. You'd have to think. Because there was the whole meme around North American, like NA mid laners. I mean, maybe you throw Pobelter in that
True.
list. Like maybe he sort of sneaks onto there. The one thing that I think. Okay. Okay. What is it?
I'm not even thinking of like who's going to be ahead of him, but they're just going to put Wild Turtle number 5.
Oh shit! Yeah, Turtle's definitely going to be on there. He'll probably be 3 actually. It'll probably be Doublelift, Sneaky, Turtle.
I think he's going to be 5.
No, I don't think so. He's got a lot. He's got a lot of championships and worlds appearances. Like.
I just think they're somehow going to put him 5. Like I don't even
really.
know.
I think they're gonna... dude. I think I'll go 3.
Maybe they'll
actually,
put him higher.
I think I'll go 3. I guess if I had to guess,
right.
It would be Doublelift 1, Sneaky 2, Wild Turtle 3, FBI 4, and then I don't know, maybe Stixay 5. That would be my guess. Mid laners, I don't know.
That sounds right to me. I
Mid
think
laners,
your AD list sounds right to me.
Bjerg, Jensen, Pobelter's somewhere in there. Damn, I can't names aren't even coming to me. It's like I said, like very. He was only in the league for what, 2 years?
Yeah, but those were 2 pretty damn good fucking years.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting just to see. Sorry. The thing that I was gonna say is, do you think Reginald makes that list for mid lane?
No, I don't. Oh, I got another one. Sven.
Oh yeah, Sven might. Yeah, okay. Well, but then I don't know. It's tough because who'd you lose off the list then? You lose FBI.
Yeah, someone's got to get the boot.
You lose FBI.
Got to get the boot.
Because I don't think Turtle's leaving, so it's either FBI or Stixay, and I think you probably remove. I don't know. I don't think Sven makes the list.
No,
he didn't. He only won the one championship with C9 in season 11. So
yeah, but you don't need to win a championship to be good, right?
Like, but I wouldn't say that he was that great
players.
either. He was not so great on TSM. mean, it wasn't terrible, but definitely didn't live up
Yeah.
to the best in the West expectations.
He was still good on TSM. Just it's hard to forget that Ezreal, man. That
Oh,
shit
yeah.
was troll. That was like it's hard to forget, man. Yeah. Anyways, interesting stuff. It's fun, and then obviously they got to do a top 10 after, right? Once they've done all the roles, they got to do a like come out with your goat. Come on, say it.
Probably
Say it's
not.
Bjergsen. Say it's Bjergsen.
I mean, it's Bjergsen. Like, if you don't, if
So
I'm sorry,
here's the thing: there's a lot of double if stands out there.
no, it's Bjergsen.
I say no as well, but I've heard many times, and I've thought about calling into Hotline about this because I've heard Mark and Travis. I think they both think it's double lift, and that drives me
What
nuts,
is going
man.
on?
It drives me. It
That
drives
is some
me nuts.
nepotism there.
It's so Bjergsen in my mind.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of people will be like, double lift got all those trophies, and it's like TSM couldn't win once they got rid of double lift, and it's like, dude, do you remember who Doublelift was playing with on TL? Don't get me wrong, Doublelift was great. But when you're playing with Core JJ and Jensen, like these are not nobodies.
Yeah, and I mean
Impact
TSM
even?
ran the league even before Doublelift showed up. Like, they were also winning.
Yes, that is my go-to as well.
And
Bjergsen joined the league and ran it. It was all him. Doublelift was there already, and it didn't matter. Bjergsen ran the league by himself. Bjergsen and 4 wards was a meme for a reason.
yeah, and I mean
That guy was insane.
we'll bring it up because we always bring it up. Season 10 summer, Bjergsen, Broken Blade, and Spica were the backbone of that team. Doublelift and Bio were not very good. Like, they won in spite of their bot lane that year on TSM.
Yeah, Doublelift was awful his last year. He was awful to his standards.
Yeah.
He was an average 80 carry.
He was like,
his last year.
if he was 4th or 5th best in his role.
And you know what? People are going to hate that take too, because I've seen so many times just in Hotline League chat, and I don't even know if it's just a meme at this point, but I see it so often that Team Liquid needs Doublelift. And I'm like, oh my God, these guys don't know, man. Like, these guys actually still think that Doublelift, when he was last playing, was still at his peak. Not even close. Not even close. And now you could make the argument that Bjergsen's not at his peak either. That is a fair argument to make. But as the way I go is what you said. I always point to how Bjergsen ran over the league when he first joined it. That to me is just unreal to me, actually.
Yeah.
But
okay. We'll get into our predictions now. We've kind of foreshadowed it a little bit, but I feel like it's going to be pretty clear cut this weekend.
Okay.
For those who recalled and watched last episode, we had a lot of differences, although we're still the same. Nobody caught up on anybody. I'm still 3 wins up.
Dude, I need to go off the board again. Like, how am I going to make up 3 games, man, in one weekend? So I'm going to have to go fucking psycho here.
Well, we'll get into it. I don't think that's going to happen in your first game here. TL versus Dignitas. Team Liquid.
Team Liquid.
EG versus Golden Guardians. EG.
EG.
100 Thieves versus FlyQuest. 100 Thieves.
100 Thieves.
TSM versus CLG. CLG, although, Jamie, if I was in your position, I'd pick TSM here.
I still can't, though.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be something, though. Like, man, it's weird to say, but this is probably one of the games that Reggie cares about the most, right? Like, he has never wanted to beat CLG so bad in his life now that their team is sitting at the bottom of the standings and CLG is doing well. But yeah, I still got to go CLG.
And then Immortals versus Cloud9. Cloud9 for me. You're going to do it on this one and not the other one?
I know, right? I know.
That's funny.
Immortals, baby.
Okay. First game, I might have said Saturday at the start. I meant Friday. It's a super week. Co-streams, by the way. Forgot about that. First game Saturday, CLG versus 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves for me.
100 Thieves.
And then TL versus Golden Guardians. TL for me.
Team Liquid.
TSM versus Cloud9. Cloud9 for me.
Cloud9.
Immortals versus FlyQuest. FlyQuest for me.
Yeah.
EG
FlyQuest.
versus Dignitas. EG for me.
I know I'm running out of time.
You're running out, dog.
EG.
Okay. Next up, Immortals versus CLG. CLG for me.
Man, I'm starting to look at what upsets I can take coming up. Yeah,
Here,
CLG.
I'll throw you a bit of a bone here. I'll take Cloud9 just because.
I'm going EG still.
I'll throw you a bone
I guess
here.
I got Cloud9 going 1 and 2 this week.
I'm back in Cloud9 because I'm a bit biased, but I mean, if I was
You think they're going to bounce back
well,
though?
but here's the thing: if the predictions actually really mattered for me, like if I was in the position of being down 3, I'd probably still take EG. But like I said, I'll throw you a bit of a bone. Next up, TSM versus FlyQuest. Ooh,
FlyQuest.
I might take TSM here actually, unironically.
Yeah.
Fuck it, I'll take TSM.
I could see them doing it. I still think FlyQuest is definitely the favorite, but I don't think it's a massive favorite. I think it's like a 60-40.
I'll take TSM. We'll spice things up here in this last week. Next up, TL versus 100 Thieves.
Ooh, this game's gonna be so interesting. I think.
Yeah, if
Don't
100 Thieves.
pick one. I gotta pick first. I gotta pick this one first.
I was just gonna preface it saying 100 Thieves better not fuck around this week because TL's got 2 free wins on Dig and Golden Guardians, and should 100 Thieves drop one of their game against FlyQuest and CLG, they could be playing tiebreakers for second here.
This is really, really interesting. Because you've made the predictions first for most of the games. I feel like I gotta pick one, so I'm not just dodging your pick. But I can't make up my freaking mind here.
Should I make it up for you?
No, I am gonna go 100 Thieves. I gotta go over consistency.
Well, I was gonna
had one good weekend, so
I was gonna do that, but we'll make it exciting.
take whatever you think. No, no.
Okay,
Take 100 Thieves if you think it's 100 Thieves.
I will do that. And then last up, Golden Guardians versus Dignitas. Dignitas, I'll be rooting for you because I want Golden Guardians to lose, but I don't think they're gonna lose because Dig is just too bad. So I'm gonna go Golden Guardians.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
All right, easy enough.
How many different do we have? 3 or 4?
I think 4.
Okay.
4 sounds about right.
Chance to. So if you win this split, are we even then? Each 2 splits?
I have no clue, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure I've won 2 splits and you won 1, I think. So I think you're in a good spot to tie that record.
We've been doing this for 4 splits now, so this is the 5th one, isn't it? So we've done season 10 summer, season 11 spring, season 11 summer, season 12 spring. That's 4. This is 5 now.
I don't think we did predictions for the first one.
I think we did.
I don't think so. I can go back and look at the VODs, I don't think we did.
Well, the tie is going to get broken here. Well, I guess if
Let's
there's not a
quick
tie.
News.
Yeah, there's a little bit of quick news. Honestly, not too much. One thing that came out today, which kind of completes the Peter Zhang chapter of the LCS, he is permabanned from all Riot affiliated events. Is that what it was, or was it just League? I think it was all Riot affiliated, things. I don't have it in front of me, so can you?
No, I'm pretty sure it's all Riot stuff.
If you can open it and read the TLDR, that'd be helpful, just for the listeners.
Oh, here it is. TLDR. Peter Zhang is permanently banned from any association or affiliation with a team or organization in a Riot-sanctioned competition for engaging in what we believe to be alarming and unethical behavior towards current and former TSM players and staff.
Yep.
And then it
makes
says
sense.
more, but you get the idea.
Yep. Alrighty.
So,
Next up, to I guess once again potentially to close out another chapter, the LS chapter of the LCS. Malice no longer on Cloud9. Apparently, he hasn't been on Cloud9 for a month and a half. He did put something on Twitter. I think it was today, talking about that. So other than Berserker, all the LS's stamp on the LCS is very minimal now.
He's got one piece of the puzzle left. What about the coach that is like the translator coach? That guy, I don't know his name. The guy that works with Berserker, the translator for him. He's also a coach. Was that an LS guy, or was that just a random guy that speaks Korean?
I'm not sure. And
so that could be another LS piece that's left over.
I say Berserker is the only one because Max Waldo and Vigar V2 were there before LS, so that's the only reason why. Obviously, they're still affiliated with LS, and everybody knew that going into it. But they were there before him, so I don't really count them. Next up, we did talk about the T1 community fan letter. The fucking crazy LCK fans. They're back at it once again.
Dude.
The T1 truck is back. If people remember, this was like an incident a couple of years ago where TSM had, trucks with text posted on the outside of them driving around the T1 headquarters, flaming the organization for their poor performances. Well, guess what? They're back at it again. They had one parked outside of the LoL Park. I think for both of their games this weekend against Hanwha and Nongshim. It's just a bit of a meme. It's kind of funny, but it's a bit fucked up, obviously.
This is the kind of crazy that drives me nuts. Like, JNT knows that like crazy is just entertainment for me in a lot of cases. Like flat Earth documentaries, I love that shit. I love crazy people sometimes. This is the crazy. There's just no good that comes from this. I'm looking at it and I'm just like, what do you do in your life when this is your priority? To put a truck outside, like, huh? Like, I don't know. So this shit, anyways, that's all I have to say on it. Crazy motherfuckers, man.
Yep. And last up, another one of our good friends over here at Quick News, LDL, more match fixing, dude. People are getting banned. There was a big
Bro,
Reddit post about it. It was translated from a Weibo post. But I'll give the quick TLDR of it. 2 LDL teams are being disqualified from the league, and 28 players/staff got different levels of suspension from 18 months to a permaban. Yeah.
dude, that
So
stuff is so bad, man.
yeah,
Like that
there's a
is
lot of players that got the team like abbreviation is ID. I don't know what the org's name is, but their whole starting roster got permabans. A few of the other ones got 42-month bans. A couple of people on other teams got 36-month bans, and like I said, 28 players and coaches got hefty bans.
the fact that it keeps happening is what ruins the league, right? Like if it happened once or twice, like, oh, those guys aren't in the league anymore, it's okay, we can move on. But if it keeps happening with more and more people, that just hurts the LDL. Like how can you watch any games if you think like it's fixed now? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
You
it
lose a
was
lot
all
of
supposed to
faith
be
in the
all the
integrity
hype.
of the league.
They were doing the fearless mode and stuff.
True. True. They need to announce some new crazy change to, get people's minds off of the corruption in their fucking league. Oh man. Bad. And
Well,
then with that a lot of careers are ruined as well, right? So
yeah, 28, or I mean, they're probably, even though they have like not indefinite suspensions, but nobody's gonna hire you now. So GG, go next
also
career.
shout out Skizzy in the live chat saying that the translator guy is an LS guy. So
Yeah,
I
he's
guess there's
got
a
the
couple of
little
pieces left.
long hair rat tail thing going on. That haircut is
He's
just
got
whack.
that. Okay.
Get out of there with that,
Let's not shame anyone's haircut, JT. Let's not do
bro.
that.
Remember when Impact was rocking
is-
that thing? Like, that guy needed to cut his hair.
Santorin
Well,
has
Santorin
some
finally
long
cut
hair.
his hair. He
Yeah.
looks like normal
You know who
Santorin
else has
again.
really long hair? Berserker has really long hair too.
Yeah, and Licorice had long hair for a while, and
Yeah. What's going on? Let's get some haircuts in there.
yeah, Jesus.
Okay, that's it for this episode, right?
I think so.
Okay, what a banger. Thanks for joining us for the whole episode. If you're still listening, nothing's changing. Same time next week. Same episodes should come out at the same time. Really just want to shout out our thumbnail guy. Actually, haven't shouted him out in a long time. So Luis, if you're listening, you're a beast. We love you.
Hey, bars.
And, what?
Said bars because it rhymed.
Nice. Yeah, that's it for this episode. We'll see you guys next week. This has been episode 95 of the Clown Fiesta podcast. Goodbye.